Richard Whitmore slammed his fist on the mahogany table so hard the water glasses trembled. His face twisted with rage as he pointed directly at Emily's swollen, pregnant belly. "You expect us to believe a pregnant waitress deserves my family's fortune? She probably seduced the old woman somehow. This is fraud. This is theft. And I will destroy her before I let her take what belongs to us." The room fell silent. Emily felt her unborn baby kick as if sensing the hatred directed at them. She had come here expecting nothing, and now she was being accused of crimes she could not even comprehend. Little did any of them know that the worthless cabin they were fighting over contained $160 million hidden in its walls. Before we continue this incredible story, please subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you do not miss what happens next. This story will shock you, move you, and stay with you long after it ends. Drop a comment below telling us which city you are watching from. We want to see how far this story travels around the world. Now let us go back to where it all began. The alarm clock screamed at 4:30 in the morning and Emily Carter's hand shot out to silence it before the sound could wake Lily. She lay there for 3 seconds, allowing herself the luxury of stillness, feeling the baby shift inside her. 7 months along now. The kicks were stronger every day, little reminders that another life depended on her surviving whatever this day would bring. She rolled out of bed, slowly pressing one hand against the small of her back where the pain had taken up permanent residence. The floor was cold. The heating had been acting up again, and she could not afford to call anyone to fix it. She had learned to layer socks instead. The walk to the bathroom was 15 steps. She had counted them hundreds of times, navigating in darkness, so she would not disturb her daughter sleeping in the converted closet that served as her bedroom. Lily was 11, now old enough to understand that they were poor young enough to still believe things might get better. Emily looked at herself in the bathroom mirror. The woman staring back had dark circles under her eyes and lines around her mouth that had not been there 5 years ago. Her hair needed washing, her uniform needed ironing, her whole life needed something she could not name. "Get it together," she whispered to her reflection. "Just get through today." She was down the stairs and out the door at 5:15, her breath forming clouds in the November air. The car started on the 3rd try. It always took 3 tries now. She had named the car Patricia after her least favorite relative because both were unreliable and made annoying noises. Murphy's Diner was already lit up when she arrived at 5:45. Marcus was in the kitchen, prepping for the breakfast rush. "You look like death," he said when she pushed through the back door. "Good morning to you, too." "I mean it, Em. When's the last time you slept more than 4 hours?" "I'll sleep when the baby's in college." Marcus shook his head but handed her an apron without further comment. He was one of the good ones. He had covered for her when she had morning sickness so bad she spent half her shift in the bathroom. He had never told management about the days she was too exhausted to move faster than a crawl. The morning rush hit at 7 and did not let up until 9:30. Emily took orders, delivered plates, refilled coffee cups, smiled at customers who looked right through her. Her feet screamed. Her back begged for mercy. The baby kicked and kicked, maybe hungry, maybe just restless. At 9:45, her phone started buzzing. She ignored it. Personal calls during shifts meant docked pay, and she was already running the numbers in her head. Rent was due in 6 days. The electric bill had a red stamp on it. Lily needed new shoes because her toes were pressing against the front of her current pair. The phone buzzed again, and again, and again. "Carter?" Doug, the manager, appeared at her elbow. His face said he was not happy. His face always said that. "Your phone's been going off for 10 minutes. Either deal with it or I'm docking your pay." "I'm sorry, I'll turn it off." "You've got 5 minutes, and table 12 says their eggs are cold." Emily pushed through the back door into the alley. The cold hit her immediately, but she barely felt it. Her phone showed 7 missed calls from a number she did not recognize. 7 calls. Nobody called 7 times unless something was wrong. Her first thought was Lily. An accident at school. A call from the hospital. Something terrible that would finally break what was left of her. She called back with shaking fingers. "Harrison and Associates Legal Services." A woman's voice, professional and distant. "How may I direct your call, legal services?" Emily's stomach dropped. Had Jason finally done something? Had the child support paperwork triggered some kind of lawsuit she could not afford to fight? "This is Emily Carter. Someone called me 7 times. 1 moment, please. Hold music." Tinny and irritating. Emily watched her breath cloud in the cold air and tried to slow her heartbeat. Then a man's voice, older, measured. "Miss Carter, this is Nathaniel Harrison. I'm calling regarding the estate of Eleanor Whitmore. I understand she was your great-aunt." Emily nearly dropped the phone. Eleanor Whitmore. Aunt Eleanor, the crazy mountain woman the family whispered about at every reunion. The hermit who lived alone in a cabin and wore the same black dress to every family gathering. The one everyone said had wasted her life. "Yes," Emily said slowly. "She was my grandmother's sister, but I haven't seen her since I was maybe 10 years old. I'm sorry to inform you that Miss Whitmore passed away 3 weeks ago." 3 weeks ago, Emily's voice rose. "And no one told me. That's why I'm calling Miss Carter. You've been named in her will. The reading is scheduled for tomorrow at 2 p.m. I strongly advise you to attend." Tomorrow, Tuesday. Emily had the breakfast shift at the diner and the evening shift at Fresh Mart. She had exactly $47 in her checking account until Friday. "I can't," she said. "I work tomorrow. I can't afford to miss a shift." "Miss Carter." Harrison's voice changed, became more urgent. "I understand your situation may be difficult, but you are named as a primary beneficiary. The estate needs to be settled, and your attendance is essential." Primary beneficiary? The words did not make sense. People like Emily were not beneficiaries. They were survivors. They were the ones who scraped by, not the ones who inherited. "What did she leave me?" Emily asked. "I barely knew her." "The specifics will be discussed at the reading, but I cannot stress enough how important it is that you attend." A pause. "Your aunt was very specific about certain things. She mentioned you by name in her final communications with our firm." Emily leaned against the cold brick wall of the alley. Her mind was racing. Aunt Eleanor had remembered her. Aunt Eleanor, who she had met twice, had mentioned her by name. "Why, I'll be there," Emily heard herself say. "Tomorrow at 2. She hung up and stared at her phone. The screen showed she had been outside for 7 minutes. Doug would dock her pay. She could not afford it. But something larger had shifted, something she could not yet name. She remembered Aunt Eleanor now. Fragments, mostly. A tall woman with silver hair and a black dress. The way the other relatives had clustered together when she left a room whispering things they thought the children could not hear. Crazy Aunt Eleanor. Poor Aunt Eleanor. What a wasted life. But Emily also remembered something else. A Christmas gathering when she was 9 years old. She had been crying behind the church because she had overheard the aunts talking about her mother, about how sad it was that her father had left, about how Emily would probably end up just like her. Aunt Eleanor had found her there. She had knelt down in her black dress, not caring about the dirt, and wiped Emily's tears with a handkerchief that smelled like pine and lavender. "Listen to me, child," she had said. "The people who talk about others are the people with nothing better to do. You are going to be stronger than all of them. I can see it in your eyes." Then she had pressed something into Emily's hand, a $50 bill, crisp and new. "For your dreams," she had whispered, "whatever they are." Emily had kept that $50 for 3 years hidden in a jewelry box. She had finally spent it when her mother lost her job walking to the store alone to buy bread and peanut butter and apples. Enough to feed them for a week. She had never told anyone where the money came from. Now, standing in the cold alley 23 years later, 7 months pregnant with a checking account balance of $47, Emily wondered what Aunt Eleanor could possibly have left her. Probably nothing valuable. A piece of jewelry, some old photographs, something sentimental but worthless like everything else in Emily's life. "Carter," Doug's voice from inside. "Break's over. Table 12 is complaining again." Emily took a breath and walked back inside. She had eggs to cook and customers to serve and a life to survive. The will reading was tomorrow. Whatever Aunt Eleanor had left her could wait until then. That night after her shift at Fresh Mart, Emily sat at the kitchen table while Lily did homework. "Mom," Lily looked up from her math problems. "You've been staring at the wall for like 10 minutes. "Sorry, baby, just thinking." "About what?" Emily hesitated. She did not want to get Lily's hopes up about something that would probably turn out to be nothing. "Do you remember me telling you about Great Aunt Eleanor?" Lily's face scrunched up. "The witch lady." "She wasn't a witch, Lily. She just lived alone." "Everyone said she was crazy." "Everyone was wrong." Emily's voice came out sharper than she intended. She softened it. "She died a few weeks ago. There's a will reading tomorrow. Apparently she left me something." Lily's eyes widened. "Like money?" "Probably not. Probably just old stuff. But I have to go." "Can I come?" Emily thought about it. She would need to take Lily anyway, since there was no one to watch her, and she could not afford a babysitter. "Yes, but you need to be on your best behavior. Some of our relatives will be there, and they can be difficult." "The mean ones?" "The complicated ones." Lily nodded solemnly. At 11, she already understood more about family dynamics than most adults. She had learned it the hard way, watching relatives disappear after Emily's mother died, watching her own father walk out the door. Emily reached across the table and squeezed her daughter's hand. "Whatever happens tomorrow," she said, "we'll be okay. We always are." Lily squeezed back. "I know, Mom. We're the Carter girls." "That's right, baby. We survive." The next morning, Emily did something she had not done in 6 years. She called in sick. "You're joking." Doug's voice was flat and cold. "I'm not. Family emergency." "Emily, if you don't show up today, don't bother coming back." She stared at the phone after he hung up. 6 years. 6 years of burns and grease and aching feet. 6 years of never missing a shift, never complaining, never asking for anything. Gone in one phone call. Her hands were shaking when she called Freshmart. Maria, her supervisor there, was kinder. "Take all the time you need, Emily. I'm so sorry for your loss." Emily almost cried at the unexpected compassion. She dressed Lily in her best clothes, the ones saved for school pictures and church on Christmas. She put on her own interview suit, the hem held up with clear tape because she could not afford to get it fixed properly. In the mirror, she saw a tired woman in cheap clothes, visibly pregnant, about to walk into a room full of people who had never thought she was worth anything. "You can do this," she told herself. "You've survived worse." The drive downtown took 45 minutes. Emily had to check her gas gauge 3 times, doing the math on whether she would have enough to get home. The answer was barely. The law office was in one of those buildings that smelled like money, marble floors, leather furniture, the kind of quiet that only expensive soundproofing could buy. Emily felt like a fraud the moment she walked in. "Miss Carter." The receptionist's smile was polished and distant. "They're waiting for you in conference room B." The conference room was already full when Emily and Lily entered. She recognized them immediately, and her stomach sank. Richard and Victoria Whitmore sat at the head of the table like they owned it. Richard was 58, tall and broad, with the kind of confidence that came from never having been told no. Victoria sat beside him in a designer dress, her jewelry catching the light. Around the table sat other relatives Emily half remembered from her mother's funeral. Cousins, second cousins, aunts and uncles who had not spoken to her in years. All of them dressed well. All of them watching her with expressions that ranged from curiosity to contempt. "Well, well," Victoria's voice cut through the room. "If it isn't Emily!" Emily felt every eye sweep over her. Her taped hem, her visible pregnancy, her daughter clutching her hand. "Victoria, Richard." "Still working at that little diner?" Victoria asked. "What was it called, huh?" "Murphy's." "How quaint." "And in your condition, no less." "That's so." "Brave?" The word brave was an insult, and they both knew it. Richard was staring at Emily's belly. "When's the baby due?" "February." "And the father?" Emily's spine straightened. "Not here." "Typical." Richard's voice was loud enough for everyone to hear. "Carter women never could keep a man." Lily's hand tightened on Emily's. Emily could feel her daughter trembling, whether from fear or anger, she could not tell. "Let's find some seats, Kenny," Emily said quietly, steering Lily to the far end of the table. They sat down. The chairs were leather and comfortable, probably worth more than Emily's car. Around them, the relatives whispered and stared. "Mom," Lily's voice was barely audible, "they're all looking at us." "I know, baby. Just ignore them." The door opened and an older man entered. White hair, kind eyes, carrying a thick folder and what looked like a small device. "Thank you all for coming. I'm Nathaniel Harrison, the executor of Eleanor Whitmore's estate." He moved to the head of the table with quiet authority. "Before I begin the reading, I should inform you that Miss Whitmore left specific instructions about how this should proceed. First, I'll read her personal message, then we'll move to individual bequests." Richard leaned forward. "Cut the ceremony, Harrison. Just tell us about the property. That cabin's sitting on prime real estate. Developers would pay millions for that land." Harrison's expression did not change. "All in good time, Mr. Whitmore." He opened the folder and removed a single sheet of paper. The handwriting was elegant, old-fashioned. "This letter was written by Eleanor Whitmore 6 months ago when she updated her will for the final time. I'll read it in full." Harrison cleared his throat. "My dear family, if you're here, it's because you expect something from me in death that you never sought in life. My company, my conversation, my love, all were available to you. Few of you wanted them." Victoria shifted in her seat. Richard's face hardened. "Now you come for what you think I've hidden away. Let me be clear. I have hidden nothing. I have simply placed things where they belong with those who will value them for the right reasons." The room was utterly silent. To those who never visited, who whispered about crazy Aunt Eleanor at every gathering, who measured my worth by my lack of husband and children, I leave you exactly what you gave me, nothing of substance. Richard slammed his palm on the table. This is ridiculous. She was clearly not in her right mind. Mr. Whitmore. Harrison's voice was ice. I will ask you once to remain silent. If you interrupt again, you will be asked to leave. Richard's face went red, but he sat back. Harrison continued reading. To the one who will understand, you know who you are. You carry your burdens with grace. You've been abandoned, but never broke. You've struggled, but never stopped fighting. I've watched you longer than you know, and I see myself in every tired step you take. Emily's heart was pounding. The letter felt like it was speaking directly to her. The cabin is merely a door. What lies beyond it is a choice. The same choice I made 42 years ago, when I lost everything, and had to decide whether to give up or build something new. Choose wisely. The family will not make it easy. Harrison set down the letter. I'll now proceed with individual bequests. The next 30 minutes were excruciating. One by one, Harrison read Eleanor's final gifts to the family. Each one was pointed. Each one was a message. To Richard Whitmore, I leave my collection of financial newspapers from 1987. May they remind you that bubbles always burst and greed always loses. Richard's face went purple. Newspapers. She left me newspapers. To Victoria Whitmore, I leave my mother's hand mirror. For someone so obsessed with appearances, may you finally look beneath the surface. Victoria's mouth fell open. To Marcus Reynolds, I leave a first edition copy of The Gambler by Dostoevsky. The house always wins, Marcus. Walk away while you still can. Marcus, a younger cousin. Emily barely remembered it, but went pale and began sweating. One by one, each relative received something worthless but cutting. A clock for the cousin who was always late. A dictionary for the uncle who used big words to hide small thoughts. A calculator for an aunt who counted everything except what mattered. The relatives grew more agitated with each reading. This was not what they had come for. This was not what they expected. Then Harrison turned to Emily. And finally, to my great-niece Emily Carter, who knows what it means to stand alone. Every head turned. Every eye focused on Emily. To Emily, who carries new life while carrying burdens that would break lesser women. To Emily, who I've watched struggle for 12 years without ever asking why the world is so cruel. To Emily, who reminds me of the woman I was before grief made me hide. Emily's breath caught in her throat. I leave my cabin and all its contents, every wall, every floor, every board, and everything within and beneath. I leave my land, 53 acres of mountain and forest and sky. I leave my legacy with the hope that she will find what I've hidden and use it to build the life she deserves. Silence. Then Richard laughed. It was an ugly sound, harsh and mocking. The cabin she left you, that falling down shack. His laughter grew louder. 50 acres of worthless mountain land that can't even be developed. Roads that are impassable half the year. A building that's probably full of rats and mold. Other relatives joined in. The laughter spread around the table like poison. How fitting, Victoria said. The poor waitress gets the poor cabin. Probably worth less than nothing once you factor in property taxes, someone added. She'll probably have that baby in the woods like an animal. Emily sat very still, her face burning. Beside her, Lily had started to cry, silently tears streaming down her cheeks, but Harrison was not finished. There are conditions. His voice cut through the laughter. The property cannot be sold for 5 years. Emily must visit the cabin within 30 days of this reading. She must go alone except for any children she may have. Richard scoffed. Conditions on a worthless inheritance. How very Eleanor. There is one more thing. Harrison reached into his folder and withdrew a thick envelope. Miss Whitmore left a sealed letter for Emily, to be opened only after she has visited the property. He handed the envelope to Emily. Her name was written across it in Eleanor's elegant script with the words, "Do not open until you have seen beneath it." "What's in it?" Victoria demanded. "We have a right to know." "No, Queta," Harrison said firmly. "You don't. This reading is concluded." The relatives did not leave quietly. There were threats, demands, accusations. Richard got in Harrison's face, demanding to see additional documentation. Victoria insisted the will should be contested. Marcus slipped out early, looking like he might be sick. Through it all, Emily sat holding the envelope, her daughter pressed against her side. Finally, the room emptied. Harrison approached them, his expression softening. "Miss Carter, are you all right?" "I don't understand." Emily's voice was barely above a whisper. "Why me? I barely knew her." "She knew you." Harrison sat down across from her. "Better than you might think. She kept files, Miss Carter. Photographs. Updates on your life. She's been watching over you for 12 years. But why? She said you would understand when you visited the cabin. She was very specific about that. You must go, and you must see what she left before you open that envelope. Emily looked at the envelope in her hands. It weighed almost nothing, but it felt like holding the future. The relatives, she said, they're not going to accept this. No, they're not. Harrison's voice was grave. Richard Whitmore is desperate. His business is failing. He has debts you cannot imagine. He expected to inherit whatever Eleanor had, and he is not a man who accepts disappointment gracefully. What are you saying? I'm saying be careful, Miss Carter. Be very careful. There are people who will help you. George Caldwell, the man who lives at the base of the mountain. He was Eleanor's friend for 40 years. Trust him, and trust me. But trust no one else until you understand the full scope of what you've inherited. Emily nodded slowly. One more thing. Harrison leaned closer, his voice dropping. Eleanor's final words to me were about you. She said, tell Emily that the cabin is just the first door. What lies beneath it will change everything. She was smiling when she said it, Miss Carter. Despite everything, despite the family, despite dying alone, she was smiling because she knew you would come. They left the law office in silence. The parking lot was nearly empty. Most of the relatives had driven away in expensive cars to expensive homes, already plotting their next move. But one figure remained. Richard Whitmore stood beside Emily's old Honda, arms crossed, waiting. Emily. His voice was falsely friendly. I think we got off on the wrong foot in there. Emily pushed Lily behind her. What do you want, Richard? Just to talk. Family to family. He smiled, but it did not reach his eyes. That cabin isn't worth anything, you know. It would cost more to maintain than you could ever afford. Why not save yourself the trouble, sign it over to the family trust, and we'll make sure you're taken care of. Taken care of. A small settlement, enough to help with the baby, enough to get you back on your feet. Emily stared at him. This man who had laughed at her, who had mocked her pregnancy, her poverty, her entire existence, now he was offering her money to give up whatever Eleanor had left, which meant he thought it was worth something. No, Emily said. Richard's smile flickered. Think carefully, Emily. You're a pregnant waitress with no husband and no money. You can't possibly manage an estate, even a small one. Let the family handle it. I said no. You're making a mistake. Maybe, but it's my mistake to make. She pushed past him, unlocking the car, ushering Lily inside. Richard did not move, but his eyes followed her with an expression that made her skin crawl. This isn't over, he called as she started the engine. That property belongs to this family, Emily. One way or another, we will get it back. Emily pulled out of the parking lot without looking back, but she could see Richard in the rearview mirror standing there watching, waiting. Whatever Eleanor had left her, Emily realized it was worth enough to make a desperate man very, very dangerous. The drive home felt longer than usual. Lily was quiet in the passenger seat, processing everything she had witnessed. Emily kept checking the rearview mirror, half expecting to see Richard's car following them. Mom, Lily finally spoke. Why were they so mean? Because they're scared, baby. Scared of what? Of not getting what they want. But they have lots of money already. I could tell from their clothes. Emily smiled sadly. Some people, no matter how much, they have always want more. They pulled into their apartment complex as the sun was setting. Emily sat in the parked car for a moment, hands on the wheel, thinking. Aunt Eleanor had watched her for 12 years, had kept files on her, had chosen her specifically out of all the relatives. Why, Mom Lily was looking at her with concern. Are you okay? I'm fine, sweetheart, just thinking. About the cabin. About everything. That night, after Lily was asleep, Emily spread the contents of the manila envelope on her kitchen table. A deed to the property. A hand-drawn map with careful notations. Turn left at the split oak. Cross the creek at Shallow Point. If you reach the blue mailbox, you've gone too far. There was a brass key, old and heavy, and the sealed envelope waiting to be opened. Emily held the key in her hand, feeling its weight. Eleanor had planned everything. The will, the conditions, the sealed letter. She had known exactly what would happen at that reading. She had known how the family would react, and she had chosen Emily anyway. The question was why. Emily thought about her life, the struggle, the sacrifice, the endless cycle of work and worry and exhaustion. She thought about Lily sleeping in a converted closet, about the baby growing inside her who would arrive in 2 months to a mother with $47 in the bank. She thought about Eleanor living alone in that cabin for 42 years, watching from a distance, waiting. For what? For me? Emily whispered to the empty kitchen. She was waiting for me. She did not know what she would find at that cabin, did not know what secrets Eleanor had hidden, but she knew one thing for certain: she was going to find out. The next morning, Emily started planning. She had 30 days to visit the cabin. The map showed it was 3 hours north, deep in the mountains. Her car might make it, might not, but she had to try. The phone rang at 8 a.m., a number she did not recognize. "Miss Carter." A woman's voice, professional. "This is Sarah from Harrison and Associates. Mr. Harrison asked me to call with some information." "What information?" "Your Uncle Richard Whitmore has been making inquiries. He's asked about property records, surveying documents, anything that might give him details about the cabin's location and value." Emily's grip tightened on the phone. "Can he do that?" "The property is yours, Miss Carter. It's a matter of public record. But Mr. Harrison wanted you to know that Richard has mentioned hiring a private investigator. He's also been in contact with several real estate developers." "Developers?" "But he said the land was worthless." A pause. "Mr. Harrison suspected you might be interested in that contradiction. He asked me to tell you that Richard Whitmore has many debts and few options. Desperate men do desperate things." After she hung up, Emily stood very still. Richard had said the cabin was worthless. He had laughed at her inheritance. But now he was hiring investigators and talking to developers, which meant he had lied, which meant the cabin might be worth something after all. Emily looked at the map Eleanor had drawn, at the brass key, at the sealed envelope. "What did you leave me, Aunt Eleanor?" she asked the empty room. "What did you hide?" 3 days later, Emily made her decision. She packed the car with everything they might need. Blankets, flashlights, food, water, a small first aid kit. The gas tank was full, paid for with the last of her savings. Lily was excited despite her attempts to hide it. "It's an adventure," she kept saying, "like a treasure hunt." "It's just an old cabin, baby. Don't get your hopes up." But Emily's own heart was racing. Something was waiting for her in those mountains. Something Eleanor had spent years protecting. They left at dawn, driving north as the sun rose over Denver. The city gave way to suburbs, then farmland, then forest. The roads narrowed. The air grew colder. At mile marker 47, they found the lightning-scarred pine from Eleanor's map. "Turn here," Lily said, pointing to Sinen. The hidden road was barely visible, more a gap in the trees than an actual path. Emily's car protested as they turned in tires, scraping over rocks and roots. "Mom, are you sure about this?" "No, but we're doing it anyway." They drove for what felt like hours. The road twisted and climbed. Twice they got stuck and had to dig out. Emily's back screamed. The baby kicked constantly. Then the trees opened up, and there it was, the cabin, small, sagging, covered in snow, everything Richard had described, and worse. But Emily felt something unexpected when she saw it. Not disappointment, not despair, recognition. "Mom," Lily's voice was uncertain. "It's kind of broken." "I know, baby, but it's ours." Emily looked at the cabin, at the mountains rising behind it, at the endless forest stretching in every direction. "Yes," she said, "it's ours." They climbed out of the car and walked through the snow to the front door. The brass key fit perfectly. Inside the cabin smelled like dust and cedar and secrets. Emily's flashlight revealed furniture covered in sheets, walls lined with books, and a fireplace that had not been lit in months. And on the wall beside the door, a letter, in Eleanor's handwriting, for Emily, to be opened only upon arrival. Emily's hands shook as she opened it. "My dear Emily, if you're reading this, then you've done what the others never would. You came despite the mockery. You looked beyond the surface. You took the harder path. This cabin has been my refuge for 42 years, but it has also been my vault. Look beneath the floorboards in the main room. Start with the third plank from the fireplace. Use the black-handled hammer in the kitchen toolbox. Trust no one with what you find until you understand its scope. Protect your children, both the one beside you and the one still waiting to be born. And remember, the greatest treasures are often hidden in the places others refuse to look. All my love, Eleanor." Emily read the letter twice, then she looked at Lily. "Find the toolbox," she said. "Kitchen, black-handled hammer." Lily ran. Emily walked to the fireplace, counted planks, 1, 2, 3. The third plank looked identical to the others, but when she knelt and ran her fingers along the edge, she felt it, a gap, almost invisible. But there. Lily returned with the hammer. Emily wedged the claw into the gap and pulled. The board came up, and Emily Carter stared down at rows of gleaming gold bars stacked like books reflecting her flashlight beam like captured sunlight. Gold. Millions of dollars in gold, hidden beneath the floor of a cabin everyone called worthless. "Mom?" Lily's voice was barely a whisper. "Is that real?" Emily lifted one of the bars. Heavy, cold, solid, on its surface stamped letters. Gold, 999.9 fine. 1 kg, 1 kilogram of pure gold. And there were dozens more, bare beneath the floor. The letter had said this was only the beginning, only the first door. What lies beneath will change everything. Emily sat back on her heels, the gold bar heavy in her hands, her daughter staring at her with wide eyes. Aunt Eleanor had not left her a worthless cabin. She had left her a fortune, and somewhere out there Richard Whitmore and the rest of the family had no idea what they had mocked, what they had laughed at, what they had lost. Emily looked at her daughter, at the gold, at the cabin that held 42 years of secrets. And for the first time in longer than she could remember, she smiled. Emily could not breathe. The gold bar in her hands felt impossible, too heavy, too real, too much for a woman who had spent 12 years counting pennies and skipping meals. "Mom?" "Oh!" Lily's voice cut through the shock. "There's more! Look!" Emily forced herself to focus. She shined the flashlight deeper into the gap beneath the floor. Row after row of gold bars stretched into the darkness. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds. "Try the next board," Lily whispered. Emily's hands were shaking so badly she could barely grip the hammer. She moved to the fourth plank. The same hidden gap, the same smooth lift when she pulled. More gold. The fifth plank, the sixth, the seventh. Every board revealed the same thing. Neat stacks of gleaming bars arranged with military precision hiding in plain sight beneath a cabin everyone had called worthless. "Mom, stop!" Lily grabbed her arm. "We need to cover this up." Emily stared at her daughter, 11 years old and already thinking 3 steps ahead. What? If someone comes, if anyone sees this. Lily's eyes were wide but determined. "We can't let them know, not yet." The child was right. Emily's mind snapped into focus. They were alone in a mountain cabin 3 hours from anywhere, sitting on what looked like millions of dollars in gold. If anyone found out, if anyone came looking. "Help me," Emily said. "We put it back exactly how it was." They worked quickly, replacing each board, tapping them down until no gaps showed. Emily scattered dust over the area, trying to make it look undisturbed. When they finished, the floor appeared exactly as it had before. No one would ever know, unless they knew where to look. Emily pulled Eleanor's letter from her pocket and read it again. The words hit differently now. "This cabin has been my refuge for 42 years, but it has also been my vault." Her vault. Eleanor had been hiding treasure here for 4 decades. Living like a hermit while she sat on a fortune, letting the family mock her, pity her, dismiss her as crazy. Why the letter mentioned more? "Look beneath the floorboards," it said. But that was just the beginning. Eleanor had written something else in her original letter at the law office. "The cabin is merely a door. What lies beyond it is a choice." Emily looked around the dusty room, at the walls lined with books, at the covered furniture, at the small kitchen visible through an open doorway. "The letter said there was more," she told Lily. "A door behind the kitchen pantry. We need to find it." They moved through the cabin carefully. Emily's flashlight revealed details she had missed before. The books were not random. They were organized, categorized, valuable looking. The furniture beneath the sheets was antique. Even the dust seemed intentional, arranged to make everything appear abandoned. Eleanor had hidden in plain sight. The kitchen was small and cramped, and cramped. Cabinets from another era, a sink that probably had not run water in years, and the pantry a narrow closet packed with canned goods so old their labels had faded. "Help me clear these," Emily said. They moved the cans one by one, hundreds of them stacked floor to ceiling. Some were modern, some looked decades old. Eleanor had been stocking this pantry for years. Preparing for what? Behind the last shelf, Emily found it. A door, painted the same dingy white as the walls, nearly invisible unless you were looking for it. Her hands trembled as she pulled out the brass key from the envelope. It fit perfectly. The lock clicked open. Beyond the door was darkness and stairs leading down. A basement? Lily's voice was uncertain. "I didn't think cabins had basements." "This one does." Emily descended slowly, her flashlight cutting through absolute black. The stairs were concrete, completely different from the rustic cabin above. They went down maybe 20 feet before ending at another door. This one was steel, with a keypad lock. Emily's heart sank. They had come this far only to be stopped by a code. She looked around frantically for any clue, any hint Eleanor might have left. There. A small card taped beside the keypad, almost invisible in the shadows. The year you were born, Emily, plus the year Lily was born. A mother's greatest treasures. Emily did the math. 1992 plus 2013. She punched in 4005. The lock clicked. The door swung open, and Emily Carter's entire understanding of reality shattered into a million pieces. The room was enormous, at least 4,000 square feet carved from solid rock, climate-controlled with subtle lighting that came on automatically as they entered. Not a basement, a museum, a vault, a kingdom of wealth beyond anything Emily had ever imagined. The gold upstairs was pocket change compared to this. One wall held safety deposit boxes from floor to ceiling, hundreds of them. Another wall displayed paintings in climate-controlled cases. Even Emily's untrained eye could recognize quality. She had seen similar works in museums behind velvet ropes guarded by security, but the center of the room stole her breath entirely. Display cases arranged in careful rows, ancient coins, illuminated manuscripts, artifacts that looked like they belonged in the Smithsonian. A collection assembled over decades, preserved like treasures from a pharaoh's tomb. "Mom," Lily's voice was barely audible. "How much is all this worth?" Emily could not answer, could not form words, could only stand and stare at the impossible wealth surrounding her. Then she saw the photographs, an entire wall covered in them, hundreds of pictures telling a story she was only beginning to understand. Eleanor young, maybe 30, wearing coveralls and a hard hat beside mining equipment. Eleanor in the 1980s shaking hands with men in suits. Eleanor at estate sales at auctions carefully selecting items while others dismissed her. And woven throughout another thread, a child. A little girl with Eleanor's eyes and a gap-toothed smile. The name was written on one photograph. Eleanor and Rosie, 1981. Rosie. Eleanor had a daughter. Emily moved closer to the photographs, her heart pounding. The pictures tracked Rosie's growth. A baby in Eleanor's arms. A toddler taking first steps. A little girl with pigtails starting school. Then nothing. The photograph stopped abruptly around age 8. "Mom, there's a letter." Lily had found something on a desk in the corner. "It has your name on it." Emily took the envelope with numb fingers. Her name in Eleanor's elegant script. She opened it. "My dearest Emily, if you've reached this room, then you've passed the first test. You came despite the mockery. You were careful with the floor discovery. You covered it back up, didn't you? I knew you would. You understand that wealth draws vultures. This vault represents 42 years of work. I started with nothing. Less than nothing. I was a widow and a grieving mother in 1982, and the world told me I was finished. I want to tell you about Rosie. She was 8 years old when she died. We were hiking, something we did every weekend. She was curious about everything, always running ahead, always reaching for the next beautiful thing. I could never keep up with her. I was always telling her to slow down, to be careful, to wait for Mama. That day she did not wait. She reached for a wildflower growing on the edge of a cliff. I was 20 feet behind her. I saw her slip. I heard her scream. I ran as fast as I could, but I held her at the bottom of that cliff for 3 hours before anyone found us. She was already gone. Had been gone before I even reached her, but I could not let go. Emily's vision blurred with tears. She had to stop reading, had to breathe. The baby inside her kicked as if sensing her distress. "Mom." Lily was beside her, worried. "What does it say, bo? Give me a minute, baby. Just give me a minute." Emily wiped her eyes and forced herself to continue. The family told me to move on, to remarry, to try again, as if a child could be replaced like a broken dish. I retreated to this cabin instead. I planned to die here, to simply stop eating, stop drinking, stop existing. What was the point of a world without Rosie? But death did not want me, and in my grief I discovered something. I was good at finding value where others saw nothing. I started in the old mines, the ones everyone said were tapped out. I found gold that generations of miners had missed because I was not afraid to go deeper, to look harder, to spend weeks chipping at rock everyone else had abandoned. Then I started buying. Estate sales mostly. Families selling off worthless antiques to pay debts. I educated myself. Read every book on art, on history, on valuation. I learned to see what others could not. 42 years, Emily. That is what is in this room. 42 years of a mother's grief transformed into a mother's legacy. The total value is approximately $160 million. Emily stopped breathing. $160 million. She read the number again, then again. It did not change. $160 million. Mom? Lily's voice seemed to come from very far away. What's wrong? You look like you're going to faint. Emily sank into the desk chair. Her legs would not hold her anymore. Lily, her voice came out as a croak. We need to. I need to. She could not finish the sentence. $160 million, hidden in a cabin everyone called worthless. Left to a pregnant waitress everyone called worthless. By a woman everyone had called crazy. Eleanor Whitmore had spent 42 years building a fortune and hiding it from the world. From her own family. From everyone except the one person she had chosen to inherit it all. Emily. Why? The letter continued. The lawyers have all the paperwork. Everything is documented. Everything is legal. You will find accounts in 17 banks, properties in 15 states, investments in markets I have tracked for decades. But Emily and I need you to understand this. The money is not the treasure. The treasure is the choice. I could have used this wealth to live in luxury, could have traveled the world, bought mansions, shown everyone who pitied me exactly how wrong they were. Instead, I stayed here, with Rosie's room exactly as she left it, with her drawings on my refrigerator, with the spot on the mountain where she is buried where I talk to her every morning. I chose isolation because I was broken. I chose hiding because I was afraid. I chose to build walls instead of bridges, to protect my treasures instead of sharing them. Do not make my mistakes, Emily. Take this wealth and bring it into the light. Not ostentatiously, not to show off, but purposefully. Find other mothers who are struggling. Find other women who have been told they are worthless. Help them see what I see in you. Strength that does not know it is strong. The family will come for you. Richard is desperate, more desperate than you know. There are files in the desk that explain everything. Protect yourself. Protect Lily. Protect the baby I will never get to meet. And when you are ready, when you have secured everything and understand the scope of what I have left, you consider why I chose you. You are the daughter I never got to raise. You are raising the granddaughter I never got to know. And soon you will give birth to a child who will inherit all of this. Not the money, but the strength, the resilience, the refusal to give up. That is the real inheritance. Everything else is just tools. All my love, forever. Eleanor. P.S. George Caldwell. The man who lives at the base of the mountain is the only person besides the lawyers who knows about this vault. He has been my guardian for 40 years. Trust him with your life. He will help you. P.P.S. There is a tunnel behind the far wall. It leads to a shed half a mile from here with a 4-wheel drive vehicle ready to go. If you ever need to run, that is your exit. The family does not know about it. No one does, except George. P.P.P.S. Tell my great-granddaughter, the one growing inside you, that her great-great-aunt thinks she kicks like a future soccer star. Emily laughed through her tears at the last line. The baby had been kicking all day as if she knew something momentous was happening. Mom. Lily had been reading over her shoulder. Her young face was streaked with tears. She lost her little girl. Yes, baby, she did. And she was watching us for years. For 12 years. Why didn't she just talk to us? Why didn't she help us when things were so hard? Emily thought about it, about Eleanor's isolation, about the walls she had built, about the fear of letting anyone close enough to hurt her again. I think she was afraid, Emily said finally. After losing Rosie, I think she could not risk loving someone again, so she watched from far away, protected us without ever letting us know. That's so sad. It is, Emily pulled Lily close, but she gave us this chance. She gave us everything, and I'm not going to waste it. They spent another hour in the vault documenting what they could. Emily found bank statements, property deeds, investment portfolios. The organization was staggering. Eleanor had prepared for this handoff with the same precision she had used to build her fortune. In the desk, Emily found something else. Detailed files on every family member. Richard's secret debts. $4.2 million owed to investors who were not known for their patience. His business dealings that looked like money laundering. FBI investigations circling closer. Victoria's affairs. Photographs and dates and names. Marcus's gambling addiction. Loan sharks. Threats. Eleanor had known everything about them, had been protecting herself and her fortune from their greed for decades. We need to leave, Emily said finally. It's getting dark and we need to think about what to do next. Should we take some of the gold? No, we leave everything exactly as we found it, until we know it's safe. They climbed back up the stairs, closed the steel door, replaced the pantry shelves. By the time they finished, the hidden door was invisible again. The cabin looked exactly as it had when they arrived. Empty. Abandoned. Worthless. But Emily knew the truth now. They stepped outside into the fading light. The temperature had dropped. Snow was starting to fall. Emily's breath formed clouds in the cold air. Then she heard it. An engine. Coming up the mountain road. "Get inside, Emily said sharply. "Now!" They rushed back into the cabin. Emily locked the door and moved to the window, peering through the grimy glass. Headlights appeared through the trees. A truck old and battered moving slowly up the hidden road. Emily's heart pounded. Richard could not have followed them, could not have found them this quickly. Unless... The truck stopped at the edge of the property. A man climbed out. Older, maybe 70, with a face weathered by decades of mountain living. He walked toward the cabin with a confidence that suggested he had made this journey many times before. Emily's hand found Lily's. The man reached the porch, knocked 3 times, waited. "Emily Carter." His voice was gruff, but not threatening. "My name is George Caldwell. Eleanor sent me?" Emily did not move, did not breathe. "I know you're in there," George continued. "I've been watching the road since you turned off the highway. Eleanor told me you would come eventually. She made me promise to protect you when you did. How do I know you're telling the truth? Because I can tell you what's under the floor, and behind the pantry, and in the tunnel you haven't found yet." A pause. "Eleanor trusted me for 40 years. She trusted me with Rosie's grave. She trusted me with everything except the vault combination that she saved for you." Emily made a decision. She unlocked the door and opened it a crack. George Caldwell did not push forward, did not try to enter. He simply stood there, letting her see him clearly. "You look like her," he said quietly. "Eleanor when she was young. Same determination in your eyes." "Did you know about the money?" "I knew there was something. She never told me the full extent, but I helped her move things over the years. Heavy things. Valuable things." His eyes were sad. "She wanted to tell you herself, had it all planned out. Then her heart gave out 3 weeks ago and the plans didn't matter anymore." "Why me out of the whole family? Why did she choose me?" George was quiet for a moment. "She watched you at your mother's funeral, saw how you held your baby and stood alone when everyone else turned away. She said you reminded her of herself at that age, before Rosie, before grief made her hide." He looked at Lily, who was peering around Emily's shoulder. "She watched this one grow up too, from a distance, kept photographs, updates. She knew when Lily started school, knew when she made the honor roll, knew everything." "That's creepy," Lily said. George almost smiled. "Maybe, but Eleanor had a complicated way of loving. She couldn't be close to people anymore, too afraid of losing them, but she never stopped caring." Emily felt tears threatening again. She pushed them down. "Richard was at the property hearing. He threatened me in the parking lot. He's not going to stop." George's face hardened. "I know. I've been tracking his movements for years. Eleanor suspected he would cause trouble eventually." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a phone. "This is a satellite phone, works anywhere. My number is programmed. The lawyer's numbers, emergency contacts. If anyone comes for you, you call me immediately." Emily took the phone. It felt heavy with responsibility. "What do I do now? Now you go home, you act normal, you don't tell anyone what you found, and you let me and the lawyers handle the legal protections." George's eyes were intense. Eleanor spent 42 years preparing for this moment. She knew the family would fight. She knew Richard would be dangerous. That's why she documented everything. Why she had 3 law firms review the will. Why she left you evidence against every person who might threaten you. Evidence. The files in the desk. She showed you those. I saw them. Those are your weapons, Richard's debts, Victoria's secrets, Marcus's gambling. If they come for you, you fight back. Eleanor made sure you would have everything you need. Emily looked at this old man who had known her great-aunt for 4 decades, who had helped her hide a fortune, who was now pledging to protect a stranger because a dead woman had asked him to. "Why are you doing this?" George was quiet for a long moment. "I found them, he finally said. "Eleanor and Rosie. On that cliff. I was the one who carried that little girl's body down the mountain while her mother screamed." His voice cracked. "I couldn't save Rosie, but Eleanor asked me to help save you. That's a debt I intend to pay." The snow was falling harder now. George looked at the sky. "Storm coming in. Roads will be impassable by morning. You can stay here tonight if you want. Cabin's got supplies, wood for the fire. Eleanor kept it stocked." Emily thought about it. 3 hours back to Denver in worsening weather with a car that barely ran in good conditions. Or a night in the cabin with her daughter sitting on $160 million. We'll stay, George nodded. I'll be at the base of the mountain. Anything happens, you call that phone. He turned to leave, then stopped. Emily, Eleanor believed in you. Believed you were the one who could do what she couldn't. Take this fortune and turn it into something that helps people instead of hiding it from them. He met her eyes. Don't prove her wrong. Then he was gone, his truck disappearing down the mountain road. Emily closed the door and locked it. Lily was staring at her. Mom, what are we going to do? Emily looked at the cabin around them, at the floor that hid gold, at the pantry that hid a vault, at the walls that held 42 years of secrets. First, she said, we're going to build a fire, then we're going to eat, and then we're going to figure out how to survive what's coming. What's coming? Emily thought about Richard's face at the parking lot, the hatred in his eyes, the desperation George had described. A war, she said quietly, but this time we're going to win. They made a fire in the stone fireplace using wood from a pile that looked decades old. Emily found canned food in the pantry, newer cans toward the front, with dates suggesting Eleanor had been stocking this place just weeks before she died. Always preparing, always planning, always protecting a fortune for someone who had no idea it existed. Mom, Lily was curled in a dusty armchair wrapped in blankets from the car. What are we going to do with all that money? I don't know yet, baby. We could buy a house, a real house. We could. We could get a new car that doesn't make scary noises. Definitely. We could help other people, like Aunt Eleanor said in her letter. Emily turned to look at her daughter, this child who had been through so much, who had watched her mother struggle for years without ever complaining. Is that what you'd want? I think so. Lily's voice was thoughtful. I know what it feels like to be scared about money all the time, to hear you crying at night when you think I'm asleep. Emily's heart clenched. You heard that. Sometimes. I pretended I didn't because I didn't want to make you feel worse. Lily looked at her mother with eyes far too old for 11. Maybe we could make it so other kids don't have to feel that way. Other moms don't have to cry at night. Emily crossed to the armchair and wrapped her arms around her daughter. The baby kicked between them. That's exactly what we're going to do, she whispered. Aunt Eleanor would be so proud of you. I never met her. She met you from far away. She loved you from far away. They stayed like that for a long time, holding each other while the fire crackled and the snow fell outside. Then Emily's satellite phone rang. She grabbed it, heart pounding. Hello, Miss Carter? A man's voice, urgent. This is Harrison. I'm sorry to call so late, but I thought you should know immediately. Know what? Richard Whitmore filed papers 2 hours ago. An emergency petition claiming you're endangering Lily by keeping her in an isolated, dangerous location. He's asking for temporary custody to be granted to Victoria while the estate is settled. Emily's blood turned to ice. He can't do that. He can try. It's baseless. Any reasonable judge will see through it, but it will tie you up in court for months. And in your condition, what do I do? Come back to Denver as soon as the roads are clear. Establish a normal residence. Show you're not hiding anything. We'll fight this in the light, not the shadows. Emily hung up and stared at the phone. Richard was not waiting, was not playing by rules. He was coming for her child while she sat in a mountain cabin with no way down until the storm passed. Mom, Lily had heard enough to understand something was wrong. What is it? Emily looked at her daughter, at the cabin full of secrets, at the fortune beneath their feet. She had $160 million, and Richard Whitmore was trying to take her child. We're going to fight, Emily said. Her voice was steel. And we're going to win. Outside, the storm raged. But inside Emily Carter, something stronger was building. Let me write this with the dramatic pacing required, lots of dialogue, emotional depth, and the mini-climaxes, twists needed. The storm broke at dawn. Emily had not slept. She had spent the night watching the windows, holding the satellite phone, waiting for something she could not name. Lily dozed fitfully in the armchair while the wind howled and the snow piled against the cabin walls. At first light, Emily shook her daughter awake. We're leaving. Now? The roads? George will have cleared the main path. We need to get back to Denver before Richard makes his next move. They moved fast. Emily grabbed the satellite phone, the letters, the key. She left everything else exactly as they had found it. The gold beneath the floor. The vault behind the pantry. $160 million hidden in the darkness. It would wait. Lily would not. The car started on the second try. Emily whispered a prayer of thanks and pulled onto the snow-covered road. The tires slipped twice before finding traction. "Mom, slow down." "I can't. You're going to get us killed. Richard is trying to take you away from me. I'll risk anything to stop that." Lily went quiet. They reached the main road 40 minutes later. George's truck was parked at the junction, engine running. He stepped out when he saw them. "Storm's worse than expected. Highway's closed for another 2 hours." "I can't wait 2 hours. You don't have a choice." George's voice was firm but kind. "Listen to me, Emily. Richard filed those papers at 8 p.m. last night. The earliest any judge will see them is Monday morning. You have time." "How do you know?" "Because I've been tracking his lawyer's filings for 3 years. Eleanor taught me how. She knew this day would come." He handed her a thermos. "Coffee? You look like you need it." Emily took the thermos with shaking hand. "What do I do?" "You go home, you find a good place to live, somewhere stable, somewhere that shows you're a responsible mother. You document everything, and you let me and Harrison build your defense." "Defense against what I haven't done anything wrong." "You inherited money that Richard believes belongs to him. In his mind, that makes you the enemy, and Richard Whitmore destroys his enemies." George's eyes were hard. "I've watched him do it before. Business partners, competitors, anyone who got in his way. He's ruthless, Emily, and he's desperate." "What kind of desperate?" George hesitated. "The kind that makes a man dangerous." 2 hours later, the highway opened. Emily drove south toward Denver with Lily asleep in the passenger seat, her mind racing through everything she had learned. $160 million, a fortune built from grief, a family that would stop at nothing to take it, and a custody battle that could cost her the only thing that truly mattered. Her phone buzzed. A text from Harrison. Richard's lawyer called. "They're pushing for an emergency hearing. Thursday, be ready." Thursday, 4 days away. Emily gripped the steering wheel and drove faster. The next 3 days blurred together. Emily found a rental house in a decent neighborhood. 3 bedrooms, a small yard, close to a good school. The security deposit cleaned out most of Eleanor's accessible funds, but Harrison assured her that more money would be transferred soon. "The estate is complex," he explained over the phone. "Multiple accounts, multiple institutions. It takes time to verify everything and set up proper access, but you'll have full control within 2 weeks. 2 weeks. The hearing was in 3 days. Emily enrolled Lily in the local middle school. She found an obstetrician who could see her the next morning. She bought groceries, set up utilities, tried to make the empty house look like a home. At night, she lay awake, one hand on her belly, thinking about everything that could go wrong. Richard had lawyers, money, connections, power. She had a cabin full of gold she could not touch, and a daughter who was counting on her. Wednesday morning, her doorbell rang. Emily froze. She was not expecting anyone. Harrison had said he would call before visiting. George was still at the mountain. The bell rang again. She moved to the window and looked out. Marcus Reynolds stood on her porch. Eleanor's cousin. The one with the gambling problem. The one who had slipped out of the will, reading, looking sick. Emily did not open the door. "I know you're in there," Marcus called. "I saw your car. Please, Emily, I need to talk to you." "Go away. I'm not here for Richard, I swear. I'm here to warn you." Emily hesitated. Every instinct told her to call the police. But something in Marcus's voice made her pause. Fear. Real fear. She opened the door a crack, keeping the chain on. "Talk." Marcus looked terrible. Thin, pale, sweating despite the cold. His hands shook as he spoke. "Richard's planning something. I don't know exactly what, but it's bad. He's been making calls, meeting with people who don't look like lawyers." "What kind of people?" "The kind you hire when you want something done quietly." Emily's blood ran cold. "Are you saying he wants to hurt me?" "I'm saying he's desperate. He owes $4 million to people who break legs when they don't get paid. The inheritance was supposed to save him. When Eleanor left it all to you..." Marcus ran a hand through his hair. "He went crazy, Emily. Started talking about how you must have manipulated her, how you didn't deserve it, how he was going to get it back no matter what it took." "Why are you telling me this?" Marcus's eyes met hers. For a moment, she saw something beneath the desperation, something almost like shame. "Because I'm not like him. I've done bad things, made bad choices, but I'm not going to help him destroy an innocent woman and her kids." He reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. "Eleanor left this for me. I found it in the things Harrison sent after the reading." Emily took the envelope through the crack in the door. It was thick, heavy. "What is it?" $50,000 and a letter." Marcus's voice cracked. She said it was my last chance, that I should take it and disappear, start over somewhere new, get help. Are you going to? I don't know, but I thought you should know what Richard's planning. The custody thing is just the beginning. If that doesn't work, he's going to try something else. Something else like what? Marcus shook his head. I don't know, but Emily, you need to be careful, really careful. He's not going to stop. He turned and walked away before she could ask anything else. Emily closed the door and locked it. Her hands were shaking. She called Harrison immediately. Marcus was just here. He says Richard is planning something beyond the custody petition. Harrison was quiet for a moment. I was afraid of this. Richard's behavior has been increasingly erratic. Our sources say he's been meeting with people outside his normal circles. What kind of people? The kind who solve problems without leaving paper trails. Emily sank onto her couch. What do I do? For now, you stay calm. You focus on the hearing tomorrow. We'll handle Richard's legal attacks with legal defenses. If he tries anything else... Harrison paused. George has contacts. People who can provide security. It might be time to reach out. That night, Emily sat at her kitchen table with her laptop researching everything she could find about Richard Whitmore. The public record painted a picture of a successful businessman. Real estate developments across Colorado. Charitable donations. Society photos with his perfect wife. But dig deeper and the cracks showed. Lawsuits from former partners. Complaints to the Better Business Bureau. A foreclosure on a commercial property 2 years ago. Another last year. And then buried in a local news archive from 6 months ago, a small article. FBI investigates Denver developer for alleged financial improprieties. The investigation was ongoing. No charges had been filed, but the implication was clear. Richard Whitmore was not just desperate. He was cornered. Mom? Emily looked up. Lily stood in the doorway in her pajamas. What are you doing up, baby? Couldn't sleep. Kept thinking about tomorrow. Emily closed the laptop. Come here. Chipon? Lily crossed the room and curled up beside her mother on the couch. Are they going to take me away? No, baby, never. But what if the judge believes them? What if they say you're a bad mom? Emily pulled her daughter close. Listen to me, Lily. I have spent 11 years being your mother. 11 years of working 2 jobs, of missing sleep, of doing whatever it took to keep you safe and fed and loved. No lawyer, no judge, no one is going to tell me that wasn't enough. But they have money and lawyers, and we have the truth. We have each other, and we have something they don't. What? Emily thought about Eleanor, about the fortune hidden in the mountains, about the letter that had said the money was not the treasure. We have someone watching over us, someone who believed in us enough to leave us everything she had. Lily was quiet for a moment. Do you think Aunt Eleanor is in heaven? I think she's wherever Rosie is, and I think she's finally at peace. Thursday morning arrived gray and cold. Emily dressed in the nicest outfit she could find. Maternity clothes that had seen better days, but clean and pressed. She helped Lily into the dress they had saved for special occasions. Remember what I told you, Emily said as they drove to the courthouse. If the judge asks you questions, just tell the truth. Don't exaggerate. Don't get angry. Just be yourself. What if I cry? Then you cry. There's no shame in that. The courthouse was crowded. Emily navigated the halls until she found the right room. Harrison was waiting outside. They're already in there, he said. Richard, Victoria, and their lawyer, Fitzgerald. He's expensive and aggressive, but we have something he doesn't. What? The truth. They entered the courtroom. Richard sat at the plaintiff's table with Victoria beside him, both perfectly dressed, perfectly composed, the picture of concerned relatives. But Emily saw the hatred in Richard's eyes when he looked at her. Pure burning hatred. She took her seat at the defense table with Lily beside her. Harrison settled his papers. All rise. Judge Morrison entered. A severe woman with sharp eyes and a reputation for cutting through nonsense. Emily did not know if that was good or bad. This is an emergency hearing regarding the welfare of the minor child, Lily Carter. The judge began. I want to be clear from the start. This is not a forum for estate disputes. We are here solely to determine whether this child is in danger. Is that understood? Both lawyers murmured agreement. Mr. Fitzgerald, you may proceed. Richard's lawyer stood. Tailored suit, expensive watch. The kind of confidence that came from never losing. Your Honor, we come before you with grave concerns about the welfare of Lily Carter and the unborn child currently in Miss Carter's care. He clicked a remote. Images appeared on a screen. The cabin. The mountain road. Snow and isolation. 3 weeks ago, Miss Carter transported her daughter to this location, a remote cabin 3 hours from Denver, accessible only by treacherous mountain roads, in November, while 7 months pregnant. Murmurs from the few observers in the room. The cabin has no electricity, no running water, no heat beyond a wood-burning stove. Miss Carter kept her daughter in this dangerous, isolated location during a major snowstorm. Harrison stood. Objection. The cabin does have heat, and Miss Carter stayed only one night due to weather conditions. One night is enough to put a child at risk, Fitzgerald countered. Furthermore, Miss Carter has no stable employment. She was recently terminated from her position at Murphy's Diner. She has no savings, no support system. Miss Carter recently inherited a substantial estate, which she is clearly unequipped to manage. Fitzgerald's voice rose. Your Honor, yesterday, Miss Carter withdrew $15,000 in cash from one of the estate accounts. We believe she may be preparing to flee with the children, to disappear before the court can ensure their safety. Emily's stomach dropped. She had withdrawn that money on Harrison's advice, to cover immediate expenses, but hearing it described this way. Judge Morrison looked at Emily. Miss Carter, would you care to explain the withdrawal? Emily stood on shaking legs. Your Honor, the money was withdrawn for housing expenses. I rented a house in a better neighborhood, enrolled Lily in a good school, saw a doctor about my pregnancy. Everything I did was to create stability for my children. She calls that stability, Fitzgerald jumped in. A woman with no job, no husband, a history of financial instability suddenly comes into money and starts spending wildly. Objection. Harrison's voice was ice. Miss Carter has documented every expense. Every penny is accounted for. I have receipts, bank statements, and signed leases. The hearing continued for 2 hours. Fitzgerald painted Emily as unstable, reckless, dangerous. He produced witnesses who claimed to have seen her acting erratically at the will reading. He implied that she had somehow manipulated Eleanor into leaving her the inheritance. Harrison countered with facts. Emily's spotless record as a mother, Lily's excellent grades, the careful planning that had gone into every financial decision, back and forth, attack and defense. Until finally Judge Morrison turned to Lily. Young lady, I'd like to hear from you. Don't be nervous. Just tell me the truth. Lily stood slowly. Emily could see her hands shaking. Your Honor, her voice was barely audible. Then it strengthened. My mom is the best person I know. She looked at the judge with eyes that had seen too much for 11 years. When my dad left us, my mom didn't cry. She got up the next morning and went to work. 2 jobs, while pregnant, because she had to take care of me. Lily's voice grew steadier. When I needed new shoes, she ate peanut butter for a week so she could afford them. When I had nightmares about Dad leaving, she stayed up with me even though she had to work at 6 a.m. When the car broke down, she learned to fix it from YouTube because she couldn't afford a mechanic. The courtroom was silent. 3 weeks ago, we went to Great Aunt Eleanor's cabin because she asked us to, in her will. It was her dying wish. Lily turned to look at Richard. Those people, my uncle and aunt, they never helped us. They never even called. They only showed up when they found out about the inheritance. Her voice cracked. My mom isn't dangerous. She's the strongest person I know. And the baby, my little sister, she's going to be so lucky because she's going to have the best mom in the world. Emily was crying silently. Half the courtroom seemed to be crying. Judge Morrison studied Lily for a long moment. Mr. Fitzgerald, I've heard your concerns. I've also heard from a remarkably poised young woman who clearly loves her mother. I've reviewed the financial documents. I've seen no evidence of neglect or endangerment. She shuffled papers. Motion for emergency custody is denied. Richard jumped to his feet. Your Honor. Furthermore, any further attempts to weaponize this child in what is clearly an inheritance dispute will result in sanctions. We're done here. Emily grabbed Lily and held her tight. They had won. But when she looked at Richard's face, she knew this was only the beginning. 3 days after the hearing, Emily woke to a sound she could not identify. Downstairs, in her new house, at 3 a.m. She reached for her phone, dialed 911, whispered her address. Then she grabbed the baseball bat she kept beside the bed and moved toward Lily's room. Her daughter was awake, eyes wide with fear. Stay here, Emily breathed. Lock the door. Don't open it for anyone except me or the police. She crept down the stairs, bat-raised heart slamming against her ribs. The baby kicked as if sensing the danger. Another sound. Kitchen. Someone going through drawers. Emily rounded the corner and swung. The bat connected with something solid. A man grunted and went down. Jesus, a voice hissed. She's crazy, told you she was crazy. Another shape emerged from the darkness. Emily swung again, missed, felt hands grabbing for the bat. The front door burst open. "Freeze, police!" Flashlights blinded her. Shouting filled the house. Within seconds, 2 men were face down on her kitchen floor, hands cuffed behind their backs. "Ma'am, are you okay? Is anyone hurt?" Emily could barely speak. Her whole body was shaking. "My daughter, upstairs." "We'll check on her." An officer led her to the couch while others searched the house. Lily appeared moments later crying and threw herself into Emily's arm. "Mom, I heard yelling. I thought, I'm okay, baby. We're okay." The detective who arrived an hour later was a tired-looking woman named Chen. She took Emily's statement while forensic techs documented everything. "They disabled your alarm," Chen noted. "Knew exactly where it was. Someone gave them information." "Richard, my uncle. He's been trying to take my inheritance." "We'll look into it." Chen paused. "Miss Carter, I've been following your family's case. Richard Whitmore is already under investigation. This might be the evidence we need to move forward." "What do you mean?" "I mean he may have just made a very big mistake." The next morning, Richard Whitmore was arrested. Emily watched the news coverage from her living room. Richard in handcuffs being led to a police car. Victoria crying on the courthouse steps. Reporters shouting questions that no one answered. Wealthy developer arrested in connection with break-in. The intruders had confessed within hours. Richard had paid them $10,000 each to retrieve documents from Emily's house. Combined with the FBI's existing investigation, it was enough. Richard faced charges for attempted burglary, conspiracy, and multiple financial crimes. Emily's phone rang. "Miss Carter." Harrison sounded almost cheerful. "I assume you've seen the news." "I have." "The custody challenges will be dropped. Victoria's lawyer has already reached out about settling. The other relatives are backing off." "It's really over. The legal threats are over. But Emily, I need you to understand something. What you've inherited is more than money. It's responsibility. Eleanor spent 42 years building that fortune. She chose you to decide what happens to it next." Emily looked at Lily, who was playing with her phone on the couch. At her belly, where the baby was kicking. "I know what I want to do," she said slowly, "but I need help making it happen. That's what I'm here for. I want to start a foundation for single mothers, women who are struggling the way I was. I want to use Eleanor's money to help them build better lives." Harrison was quiet for a moment. "Eleanor would have loved that." "I know, that's why I'm doing it." 2 weeks later, Emily returned to the mountain. George met her at the gate. He looked different somehow. Lighter. "Heard about Richard," he said. "Eleanor would have enjoyed watching him get led away in handcuffs. I wish she could have seen it." Maybe she did. They walked to the cabin together. Emily had come to retrieve documents from the vault. Things Harrison needed for the estate settlement, but there was something else she wanted to do first. "Where is she buried?" Emily asked. "Rosie, I mean. The letter mentioned a spot on the mountain." George's face softened. "I'll show you." They walked for 20 minutes up a trail that wound through bare winter trees. At the top of a small rise, they found it. A simple stone marker beneath an ancient oak. "Rosie Whitmore, 1973-1981, beloved daughter." Beside it, a newer marker. "Eleanor Whitmore, 1945-2023, finally home." Emily knelt in the snow, one hand on her belly. "I never met you," she whispered. "Either of you. But you changed my life. You gave me a chance I never thought I'd have." The wind rustled through the bare branches. "I'm going to do what you asked, Eleanor. I'm going to take what you built and turn it into something that helps people. I'm going to make sure no mother ever has to struggle the way you did, the way I did." She placed her hand on Eleanor's marker. "Thank you for watching over me, for believing in me, for everything." When she stood, George was watching with tears in his eyes. "She would have loved you," he said, "if she had let herself get close enough to know you." "I know." That's the saddest part. They walked back to the cabin in silence. Inside, Emily descended to the vault one more time. She gathered the documents Harrison needed. Property deeds, bank statements, investment records. But before she left, she found something she had missed before. A photograph tucked behind others on the wall. Eleanor as a young woman, maybe 30, holding baby Rosie in her arms. Both of them laughing at something outside the frame. On the back, in Eleanor's handwriting, "The best day of my life." Emily slipped the photograph into her pocket. She would frame it, hang it in her new house. A reminder of where this fortune came from, of the love and grief and determination that had built it. and of the little girl who had reached for a flower on the edge of a cliff not knowing she would change everything. The drive back to Denver felt different this time. Emily was not fleeing, not hiding, not running from anything. She was moving towards something. A new life. A new purpose. A chance to transform Farm Eleanor's isolated fortune into something that connected people instead of separating them. The baby kicked hard. "I know," Emily said, one hand on her belly. "I feel it too. This is just the beginning." Lily looked up from her phone. "Mom, are you talking to the baby again?" "Always." "Does she answer?" Emily smiled. In her own way. They drove through the mountains as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of gold. The same color as the bars hidden beneath the cabin floor. The same color as the fortune that was about to change everything. But for Emily, the true treasure was not in any vault. It was in the back seat asking questions about homework. It was in her belly kicking with impatience to meet the world. It was in the memory of a woman who had watched from afar for 12 years, waiting for the right moment to give everything away. And it was in the choice that lay ahead. The choice to build instead of hide, to share instead of hoard, to transform grief into purpose, isolation into community wealth, into worth. Eleanor had made her choice 42 years ago. Now it was Emily's turn. Let me write this part with all the requirements in mind, making it dramatic, emotional, and fast-paced with proper mini-climaxes and twists. The Eleanor Whitmore Foundation launched on a Tuesday morning in March, exactly 4 months after Emily had first stepped into that crumbling cabin. No press releases, no grand announcements, just Emily, Harrison, George, and a small group of people who understood what it meant to build something from nothing. The office was modest, a converted storefront in Emily's old neighborhood walking distance from the diner where she had once worked double shifts. She had chosen the location deliberately. This was where struggling mothers lived. This was where they needed help. "First order of business, Strap," Harrison said, spreading papers across the conference table. "We need to establish grant criteria. Who qualifies? How much do we give? What documentation do we require?" Emily thought about her own journey, the years of exhaustion, the impossible choices, the moments when giving up seemed like the only option. "No documentation," she said. Harrison looked up sharply. "Excuse me." "I spent 12 years trying to prove I deserved help, filling out forms, providing pay stubs, explaining my situation to people who had already decided I wasn't worth their time." Emily's voice was steady. "We're not going to do that. If a woman comes to us and says she needs help, we believe her." "Emily, that's admirable, but we need some system of accountability. Then we build relationships. We follow up. We offer support beyond money." She met his eyes. "But we don't make them jump through hoops to prove they're struggling. If you've never been poor, you don't understand how humiliating that is." George nodded slowly. Eleanor would have liked that. Eleanor spent 42 years hiding because she was afraid of being judged. "I'm not going to create a foundation that makes other women feel judged." Harrison was quiet for a moment. Then he smiled. "All right, we'll do it your way." The first grant went to Maria. Emily had tracked her down through the Fresh Mart employee directory. Maria Gonzalez, 53 years old, overnight cleaner, 3 grandchildren she was raising alone because her daughter had died of cancer 2 years ago. Maria had once found Emily crying in the supply closet during a particularly brutal shift. She had not asked questions, had not offered empty platitudes. She had simply handed Emily a tissue, patted her shoulder, and said, "You're stronger than you think, mija. We all are." Now Emily sat across from her in the foundation office, watching Maria's face as she processed what she was hearing. $75,000, Emily repeated. "To start your own cleaning business, no strings attached." Maria stared at the check in her hands. Her fingers were trembling. "This isn't real." "It's real." "But why? You barely know me." "Because you showed me kindness when I had nothing. Because you're raising 3 children on a cleaner's salary. Because you deserve a chance to build something of your own." Maria looked up with tears streaming down her face. "I've dreamed about this for 20 years, having my own business, being my own boss, but I never thought—" "I know, neither did I." Maria clutched the check to her chest. "How can I ever repay you?" Emily reached across the table and took her hand. "You help someone else. When you're successful, when your business is thriving, you find another woman who needs a chance and you give her one. That's how you repay me." Maria nodded, unable to speak. "And Maria, you're going to be amazing. I already know it." Word spread quickly. Not through advertisements or social media campaigns, but through the networks that mattered. Church basements and bus stops, break rooms and playgrounds. the quiet conversations between women who understood struggle. Within 3 weeks, the foundation had received over 200 applications. Emily read every single one. Late at night, after Lily was asleep after her own exhaustion had faded to a dull ache, she sat at her kitchen table and absorbed story after story of women fighting impossible battles. A 22-year-old with twins who worked 3 jobs and still could not afford daycare. A 45-year-old who had left an abusive husband and was living in her car with her teenage son. A 60-year-old grandmother raising her daughter's children after the daughter overdosed, surviving on Social Security that barely covered rent. Each application was a mirror. Each story reflected something Emily recognized from her own life. She approved them all. "You can't save everyone," Harrison warned during one of their weekly meetings. "The money is substantial, but it's not infinite. You need to pace yourself." Eleanor spent 42 years accumulating wealth she never used. I'm not going to make that mistake. "Emily, how much is in the accessible accounts right now?" Harrison consulted his papers. "Approximately $37 million in liquid assets, more coming as we process additional holdings." "And how much have we given out?" "Just under $2 million. "Then we have plenty." Emily's voice was firm. "Keep processing applications. I'll review them tonight." Lily found her at 3 a.m. still reading. "Mom, you need to sleep." "In a minute, baby." "You said that 2 hours ago." Lily sat down across from her mother. "What are you looking at?" Emily hesitated, then turned the laptop so Lily could see. "Applications. Women who need help." Lily read silently for a moment. "This one's homeless, with a kid." "I know." "What are you going to do?" "Give her enough money to get an apartment. Help her find a job. Make sure her son can stay in school." Lily looked at her mother with eyes that had seen too much for 12 years. "Do you think Aunt Eleanor is watching?" "I think she's finally at peace." "Because you're doing what she wanted." Emily thought about the letter in the vault, about Eleanor's words, "Take this wealth and bring it into the light." Because the money isn't hiding anymore. It's helping people. It's doing what it was always meant to do. Lily nodded slowly. "I want to help too. Can I read some of the applications?" Emily smiled and turned the laptop toward her daughter. "Pick one. You can decide who we help next." The baby came 3 weeks early. Emily was in the middle of a meeting with potential donors when her water broke. For a moment, she just sat there, shocked, watching the puddle spread beneath her chair. "Emily," Harrison's voice seemed to come from very far away. "Emily, are you all right? I think we need to reschedule." The next 6 hours were a blur of pain and fear and the overwhelming realization that she was about to become a mother again. George drove her to the hospital at speeds that definitely broke several laws. Lily arrived just in time, pulled from school by a frantic call from Harrison. At 11:47 p.m., weighing 6 pounds 4 ounces, Eleanor Rose Carter entered the world screaming. Emily held her daughter for the first time and felt something crack open inside her chest. Something that had been locked away for years. "She's perfect," Lily whispered, peering at her baby sister. "She looks like you. She looks like herself." "Mom, are you crying?" Emily could not answer, could not form words, could only hold this tiny, perfect creature and understand for the first time what Eleanor must have felt holding Rosie. The love, the terror, the fierce primal need to protect. "I've got you," she whispered to her newborn daughter. "I've got you both, and I'm never letting go." Recovery was harder than Emily expected. The foundation work did not stop just because she had given birth. Applications kept coming. Decisions needed to be made. Problems required solving. 3 weeks after leaving the hospital, Emily was back in the office, baby Eleanor strapped to her chest in a carrier. "This is insane," Harrison said, watching her review files while simultaneously bouncing the baby. "You should be resting." "I rested for 3 weeks. That's more than I got after Lily was born." "Emily, these women don't get maternity leave. They don't get time off to recover. They go back to work with bleeding stitches because they can't afford not to." She met his eyes. "I'm not going to sit at home in comfort while they struggle." Harrison sighed but did not argue. By the time baby Eleanor was 2 months old, the foundation had helped over 100 families. Maria's cleaning company was thriving. She had hired 15 employees, all of them women from the neighborhood, all of them struggling like she had once struggled. The homeless mother with the son had found an apartment, a job, and enrolled in night classes to get her GED. The grandmother raising her grandchildren had received enough money to move to a safer neighborhood and put her oldest grandchild in college. Each success story fed Emily's determination. Each transformed life proved that Eleanor's fortune could do more good in 1 year than it had done in 40 years of hiding. But not everyone was happy. Victoria Whitmore appeared at the foundation office on a Thursday afternoon 6 months after Richard's arrest. Emily was reviewing grant applications when the door opened. She looked up expecting a new applicant and froze. Victoria looked different, thinner, older. The designer clothes had been replaced by something simpler. The jewelry was gone. "May I come in?" Emily's first instinct was to say no, to call security, to have this woman removed from her sight. But something in Victoria's eyes stopped her. Something that looked almost like shame. 5 minutes. Victoria sat down across from Emily's desk. Her hands were shaking. "I don't expect you to forgive me. I know what I did, what I said, how I treated you at the reading." "Then why are you here?" "Because I need you to know that I'm not like Richard. I never wanted to hurt you. I just..." Victoria's voice cracked. "I was afraid of losing everything, of ending up poor, of being the kind of person that people laugh at and pity." Emily stared at her. "You already were that person. You just didn't know it." Victoria flinched. I know that now. The divorce, the investigation, the way everyone looks at me like I'm contaminated." She took a shaky breath. "I understand now what it feels like to be judged before you even open your mouth." "So you came here for sympathy?" "No, I came here to apologize and to ask if there's anything I can do to help." Victoria met Emily's eyes. "I've spent my whole life looking down on people who struggled, convincing myself that rich people deserved their wealth and poor people deserved their poverty. I was wrong. I was so wrong." Emily studied the woman in front of her, the woman who had mocked her pregnancy, who had called her worthless, who had tried to take her child, but also the woman who had believed what she was told, who had never known anything different, who was perhaps finally ready to learn. "We run job training workshops every Wednesday," Emily said slowly. "Show up, work, keep your opinions to yourself. We'll see." Victoria's eyes widened. "Really? Don't make me regret it." Victoria showed up the next Wednesday, and the Wednesday after that, and every Wednesday for the next 6 months. She was awkward at first, said the wrong things, made assumptions that revealed how little she understood about poverty, but she kept coming, kept listening, kept trying. By the end of the year, she was running the entire workshop program. "I don't understand," Lily said one evening watching Victoria help a young mother with her resume. "She was so mean to us. Why did you give her a chance?" Emily thought about it. "Because Eleanor gave me a chance. Because people can change if you let them. Because holding on to anger only hurts the person holding it." "Do you forgive her?" "I'm working on it." Marcus found his redemption too. 6 months after Emily had given him the envelope at her door, he called the foundation office. "I'm clean," he said, his voice steadier than Emily had ever heard it. 6 months sober, got a job, nothing fancy but honest work. "I'm proud of you, Marcus." "I want to help, at the foundation. Maybe work with other people who have addiction problems. Share my story." Emily felt tears prick her eyes. "Eleanor would have loved that." "I know, that's why I'm doing it." Marcus became the foundation's addiction counselor. He led support groups, shared his story with anyone who would listen, proved that second chances were real even for people who had made terrible mistakes. "You're building something mysticum," George told Emily one evening as they watched the foundation staff celebrate another successful grant cycle. "Eleanor would be so proud." "I couldn't have done it without you." "Yes, you could have. That's what Eleanor always said. You were the one. You just needed the chance to prove it." Emily looked around the room. At Maria, now a successful business owner. At Victoria, transformed from enemy to ally. At Marcus, living proof that redemption was possible. At Lily, playing with baby Eleanor in the corner, both of them laughing. At the family she had built. Not the one she was born into, but the one she had chosen. "She was right," Emily said softly. "This is what the money was for. Not hiding, not hoarding. This." The first anniversary gala was held in the community center of Emily's old neighborhood. No fancy hotels, no champagne and caviar, just the women the foundation had helped, the volunteers who had supported them, and the community that had formed around a shared mission. Emily stood at a makeshift podium, baby Eleanor on her hip, Lily beside her in a blue dress. "1 year ago," she began, "I was a pregnant waitress who had just been fired. I had $47 in my checking account. I thought success meant surviving another day." The room was silent, every eye focused on her. "Then my great-aunt Eleanor left me an inheritance that changed everything. Not just money, though there was plenty of that. She left me a choice, a chance to break the cycle, a responsibility to do better than she did." Emily's voice strengthened. Eleanor spent 42 years building a fortune in isolation. She lost her daughter, retreated from the world, and never let anyone in again. She died wealthy and alone. That's not success. That's tragedy. She looked around the room at the faces of women whose lives had been transformed. Real success is this room. It's Maria's company employing 40 people now. It's the 200 families we've helped this year. It's every mother who no longer has to choose between rent and groceries. Emily found George in the back of the room, tears streaming down his weathered face. Real success isn't what you accumulate, it's what you build. It's what you give. It's what you leave behind. She held baby Eleanor a little tighter. My daughter is named after two people. Eleanor Whitmore, who built an empire from grief, and Rose, the little girl she lost. I named her that because I wanted her to know that our lives are connected. To everyone who came before us, and everyone who comes after. The applause started slowly, then grew until it filled the room. But Emily was not finished. I have one more announcement. Starting next month, the foundation is expanding. We're opening offices in 5 more cities, helping 5 times as many families, building something that will outlast all of us. The room erupted. Emily stepped back from the podium, overwhelmed. Lily grabbed her hand. Baby Eleanor gurgled happily. Mom? Lily's voice was thick with emotion. I think Aunt Eleanor is watching right now. I think so too, baby. I think she's finally happy. That night after the gala, after the congratulations, and the tears and the endless photographs, Emily drove back to the cabin. She did this sometimes, when she needed to think, when she needed to remember where all of this had started. George met her at the gate. He looked older now, but his eyes were brighter than they had been a year ago. Couldn't sleep, he asked. Wanted to talk to her. George nodded and stepped aside. Emily walked up the familiar path to the rise where Eleanor and Rosie were buried. The markers were simple but well-maintained. George tended them every week. She sat down in the snow, ignoring the cold. I did it, she whispered to the silent stones. Everything you asked? I took your money and I built something that helps people. I transformed your isolation into community, your grief into purpose. The wind moved through the bare branches, making a sound almost like breathing. I named my daughter after you, both of you. She's amazing, Eleanor. You would have loved her. She's got your stubborn chin and Rosie's curiosity. She reaches for everything just like Rosie did. Emily wiped her eyes. I understand now why you chose me. Because I knew what it meant to stand alone. Because I understood that wealth is a responsibility, not just a privilege. Because I was the daughter you never got to raise and you trusted me to do what you couldn't. She placed her hand on Eleanor's marker. Thank you for watching over us, for believing in me, for giving me a chance to become someone I never thought I could be. The stars were brilliant overhead, millions of them, each one a promise of possibility. I won't let you down, Emily whispered. I promise. When she finally stood to leave, she felt lighter than she had in months, maybe years. The weight she had carried for so long, the fear and exhaustion and doubt had been replaced by something else. Purpose. She walked back to her car where George was waiting. Feel better? He asked. Much. Eleanor used to come up here every morning, talk to Rosie, tell her about her day. George's voice was rough with old grief. I think she'd be glad to have someone else to talk to now. Emily looked back at the markers barely visible in the darkness. I think they're together now. Finally. I like to think so too. They drove down the mountain in comfortable silence. As they reached the main road, Emily's phone buzzed, a text from Harrison. Congratulations on tonight. Eleanor would be proud. The board approved the expansion. 5 new cities confirmed. Ready to change some more lives. Emily smiled and typed back, Ready. She looked at the road ahead, stretching into darkness. Somewhere behind her, a cabin full of secrets stood waiting. Somewhere above her, 2 souls had finally found peace. And somewhere inside her, the scared, pregnant waitress who had walked into that law office a year ago had transformed into someone she barely recognized. Someone strong enough to change the world. One mother at a time. 2 years had passed since Emily Carter first walked into that crumbling cabin with $47 in her checking account and a daughter who believed in magic. Now, she stood in the lobby of the Eleanor Whitmore Foundation's national headquarters, watching volunteers stream through the doors for another day of changing lives. The building had once been an abandoned warehouse in her old neighborhood. Now it hummed with purpose. Mom, Lily's voice cut through the morning bustle. At 13, she had grown 4 inches and developed opinions about everything. The Denver office called. They need approval on 3 emergency grants before noon. Send me the files. I'll review them during the board meeting. Also, baby Eleanor drew on the wall again, with permanent marker. Emily closed her eyes. Which wall? What? The one with the donor plaques. Of course she did. Baby Eleanor, now 2 years old and chaos incarnate, had inherited her great-great-aunt's stubborn determination and her mother's complete disregard for rules. She had also, Emily suspected, inherited Rosie's fearlessness. The child climbed. Everything touched everything and showed absolutely no concern for consequences. I'll handle it, Lily said, already walking away. Mrs. Patterson from accounting has magic erasers. When did you become the responsible one? When you started running a $100 million foundation and forgot how to sleep. Emily watched her daughter disappear down the hallway. 13 years old and already managing crises. Already understanding that helping others sometimes meant sacrificing your own comfort. Eleanor would have loved her. The board meeting started at 9 sharp. Harrison sat at the head of the table, older now, grayer, but still sharp as a blade. George was there too, officially retired, but unofficially indispensable. Victoria had earned a seat through 2 years of tireless work. Marcus led the addiction recovery program that had become one of the Foundation's most successful initiatives. And at the center of it all, Emily. The numbers are in for the fiscal year, Harrison began spreading reports across the table. We've helped over 3,000 families across 12 cities. Employment rates among grant recipients are up 67%. Home ownership is up 43%. Children of recipients are graduating high school at rates 20% higher than the national average. Emily listened, but her mind was elsewhere. 3,000 families, 3,000 mothers who no longer cried alone at night, 3,000 children who would never know the fear that had defined her own childhood. It was not enough. It would never be enough. But it was a start. There's more, Harrison continued. We've received inquiries from organizations in 6 additional states. They want to replicate our model, and there's been interest from overseas as well. Canada, United Kingdom, Australia. Victoria leaned forward. We don't have the infrastructure for international expansion, not yet. No, Emily agreed. But we can share our methods, our training programs, our approach. That would require significant resources. Eleanor left me $160 million. Emily's voice was calm but firm. We've used less than half of it. The investments Harrison set up have actually increased our total holdings. The money isn't the problem. Then what is? Emily looked around the table at the people who had become her family, the allies she had found in the most unexpected places. The problem is me. I can't be everywhere. I can't oversee every city, every program, every grant. We need to train people to do this without me, to build something that survives beyond any one person. George nodded slowly. Eleanor tried to do everything herself. That's why she ended up alone. Exactly. I'm not going to make that mistake. The meeting continued for another 2 hours. By the end, they had a plan. Regional directors for each city, a training program for new staff, a gradual transition that would allow Emily to step back from day-to-day operations without abandoning the mission. One more thing, Harrison said as people began gathering their papers. I received a letter this morning from Richard Whitmore. The room went silent. Richard had been in federal prison for 18 months, convicted of financial fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy. His sentence was 12 years. Emily had not thought about him in months. What does he want? Harrison handed her the letter. Emily read it silently, her face expressionless. Dear Emily, I don't expect you to read this. I wouldn't blame you if you threw it away without opening it. But I need to say these things even if no one hears them. I was wrong. About everything. About you, about Eleanor, about what matters in life. When I heard what you've done with the foundation, what you've built, who you've helped, I felt something I haven't felt in years. Shame. Real shame. I spent my whole life chasing money, believing that wealth made me valuable, that having more meant being more. And when Eleanor left everything to you, I couldn't accept it. Couldn't accept that she had seen something in you that she never saw in me. Now I understand. She saw what I refused to see, that you knew the value of struggle, that you understood what it meant to build something from nothing, that you would use her fortune the way she always wished she had used it herself. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know that I finally understand, and I'm sorry for everything. Richard Emily set the letter down. What are you going to do? Victoria asked quietly. Emily thought about it. About the man who had tried to take her child, who had sent people to break into her home, who had made her fear for her life. But also about Eleanor's letter. about the Foundation's mission, about what it meant to truly transform grief into purpose. "I'm going to write back," she said finally. "I'm not going to forgive him, not yet. Maybe not ever, but I'm going to tell him that change is possible, that who we were doesn't have to determine who we become." George raised an eyebrow. "That's more than he deserves?" "Maybe, but it's what Eleanor would have done. She spent 42 years hiding because she couldn't forgive herself for losing Rosie. I'm not going to spend my life hiding from people who hurt me." Emily stood. "Meeting adjourned. I have a foundation to run." The afternoon brought a visitor Emily had not expected. She was reviewing grant applications when her assistant knocked on the office door. "There's a woman here to see you. Says her name is Jennifer Whitmore, Richard's daughter." Emily's heart stuttered. Richard had a daughter. She had known that distantly, the way you know facts about relatives you never see. But she had never met Jennifer, had never thought about her at all. "Send her in." Jennifer Whitmore was 32 years old, with her father's dark hair and a nervous energy that suggested she had been building courage for this visit for a long time. She stood in the doorway like she expected to be thrown out. "Thank you for seeing me. I know I don't have any right to be here." "Sit down." Jennifer sat. Her hands were shaking. "I want you to know that I had nothing to do with what my father did. I didn't know about the break-in or the custody petition or any of it until I saw it on the news." "I believe you." "You do. Richard didn't share his plans with anyone. That's why he got caught." Emily studied the young woman across from her. "Why are you here, Jennifer?" Jennifer took a deep breath. "I'm pregnant. 4 months, and I'm alone. The father left when he found out. My mother won't speak to me because of the shame my father brought on the family. I have no job, no savings, nothing." Emily understood immediately. "You came here for help." "I came here because I didn't know where else to go." Jennifer's voice cracked. "I know it's wrong. I know I have no right to ask anything of you not after what my father did, but I can't stop thinking about what you've built here, about all the women you've helped, and I thought maybe, just maybe—" "Yes." Jennifer stopped mid-sentence. "What?" "Yes, we'll help you. But my father, your father made his choices. You're not responsible for them." Emily leaned forward. "The whole point of this foundation is that people deserve chances. Second chances, third chances, as many as it takes. That doesn't stop being true just because your last name is Whitmore." Jennifer started crying. "I don't understand. After everything he did to you." "I'm not doing this for him. I'm doing this for you, and for your baby." Emily handed her a tissue. "Eleanor spent 42 years punishing herself for something that wasn't her fault. I'm not going to punish you for something that wasn't yours." Jennifer wiped her eyes. "They said you were different. The women in the waiting room, they said you actually listen, that you don't judge, that you remember what it's like to struggle." "I remember every day. That's why I do this." "Thank you. I don't know how to—" "Thank me by being a good mother. Thank me by raising your child to be kind. Thank me by helping someone else when you're back on your feet." Emily smiled. "That's how this works. We rise by lifting others." Jennifer left with a grant application and the number for the Foundation's housing assistance program. Emily watched her go, thinking about the strange cycles of life. Richard had tried to destroy her. Now she was helping his daughter survive. Eleanor would have appreciated the irony. The call came at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday, 6 months later. Emily grabbed her phone, heart pounding, expecting disaster. At 3 a.m. calls only brought bad news. "Miss Carter," a woman's voice, professional but urgent. "This is Mercy Hospital. We have a patient here asking for you. Her name is Margaret Chen." Emily did not recognize the name. "I'm sorry, who—" "She says you helped her 2 years ago, emergency housing grant. She's been in an accident. She's asking for you specifically, says you're the only family she has." Emily was out of bed before the call ended. The drive to the hospital took 20 minutes. The woman in the bed took her breath away. Margaret Chen, 57 years old, former recipient of one of the Foundation's first grants. Emily remembered her now. A domestic violence survivor who had fled her husband with nothing but the clothes on her back. The Foundation had helped her find an apartment, get a job, rebuild her life. Now she lay in a hospital bed with tubes and monitors and a face swollen beyond recognition. "He found me," Margaret whispered when Emily took her hand. "After 2 years, he found me." Emily felt rage building in her chest. "Where is he now? Police arrested him. But Emily—" Margaret's grip tightened. "He wasn't just after me. He was asking about the Foundation, about you, about where you live." Ice ran through Emily's veins. What do you mean? He said someone paid him. To find me. To find out everything about the Foundation's operations, about the women we've helped, about you. Emily's mind raced. Richard was in prison. Victoria had changed. Marcus was clean. Who else would want to hurt them? Then it hit her. Richard had owed money to dangerous people. $4 million to investors who did not forgive debts just because the debtor went to prison. I need to make some calls, Emily said. You're safe now, I promise. She stepped into the hallway and dialed George. We have a problem. By dawn, the situation was clear. Richard's creditors had not forgotten about the money he owed them, and they had figured out that the inheritance Richard had tried to claim was now being used by his cousin Emily to fund a charity. $160 million. More than enough to cover Richard's debts. And these were not the kind of people who respected legal ownership. We need to increase security, George said during an emergency call. At the Foundation, at your home, at every location connected to you. That will scare the women we're trying to help. Many of them are already traumatized. Emily. I won't turn our Foundation into a fortress. That's exactly what Eleanor did. That's why she spent 42 years alone. Eleanor didn't have organized criminals targeting her. We don't know that. She was paranoid about security for a reason. Harrison's voice came over the phone line. There may be another option. The FBI has been investigating Richard's creditors for years. If we provide information about their activities, we might be able to get them prosecuted before they make any moves against you. You want me to cooperate with the FBI? I want you to survive. Emily thought about Lily, about baby Eleanor, about the 3,000 families who depended on the Foundation. Set up a meeting. The FBI agent was a tired-looking woman named Sarah Martinez. She met Emily at the Foundation office, reviewed the files Eleanor had compiled decades ago, and shook her head in amazement. Your great-aunt was thorough. These records go back 30 years. Names, dates, transactions. It's enough to build cases against half a dozen people we've been tracking for a decade. Will it be enough to stop them from coming after me? If we move fast, they don't know what you have. Once they're in custody, they won't be able to threaten anyone. And if you don't move fast... Agent Martinez was quiet for a moment. Then we protect you as best we can. But these people don't give up easily, and they don't forget. The arrests came 3 weeks later. Emily watched the news coverage from her living room, Lily on one side, baby Eleanor asleep on the other. 7 people in handcuffs. Millions of dollars in illegal assets seized. An organization that had terrorized people for decades, finally brought down. And at the center of it all, evidence that a reclusive old woman had been gathering for 40 years. Eleanor knew, Emily murmured. She knew who they were, what they had done. She documented everything. Why didn't she turn them in herself? Lily asked. Because she was afraid. Because she didn't trust anyone. Because she thought the only way to stay safe was to stay hidden. Emily looked at her daughters, at the home she had built, at the life that had seemed impossible 2 years ago. She gave me the evidence because she trusted me to use it, to do what she couldn't, to bring it into the light. So, the Foundation celebrated its 2nd anniversary with an event that nobody expected. Emily had spent weeks planning it. Not another gala, not another self-congratulatory gathering of donors and dignitaries. A reunion. Every woman the Foundation had helped over the past 2 years was invited. Every child. Every family. They came from 12 cities by bus and car and plane, converging on the community center in Emily's old neighborhood. The same community center where she had once stood in line for free school supplies. Where she had attended job fairs that never led anywhere. Where she had felt invisible and forgotten. Now it was filled with over 1,000 people. Women who had started businesses, children who were thriving in school, families who had escaped poverty, abuse, hopelessness. Emily stood at the front of the room, baby Eleanor on her hip, Lily beside her, and struggled to find words. 2 years ago, she finally managed. I was one of you. I was struggling, scared, alone. I thought that was just how life was going to be, that I would work myself to death and still never have enough. The room was silent, 1,000 faces watching, 1,000 stories represented. Then my great-aunt Eleanor gave me a gift, not just money, though there was plenty of that. She gave me permission to dream bigger, permission to believe I deserved better, permission to help others the way I wished someone had helped me. Emily's voice strengthened. But here's what I've learned in the past 2 years. Eleanor was wrong about one thing. She thought the money was the gift. She spent 42 years accumulating wealth because she believed that was what she could give. She looked at Maria in the front row, at Victoria near the back, at Marcus standing by the door. The money was never the gift. The gift was believing in people, seeing their potential when no one else did, giving them a chance to become who they were always meant to be. Emily held baby Eleanor a little tighter. That's what this foundation does. We don't just write checks. We build relationships. We create community. We prove that nobody has to struggle alone. She found George in the crowd, tears streaming down his weathered face. Eleanor spent 42 years isolated because she couldn't bear to lose anyone else after Rosie died. But isolation isn't protection. It's just another kind of prison. Emily smiled. This room is what Eleanor really wanted. Not a vault full of gold. Not an empire built in secret. This. Connection. Community. Love that multiplies instead of hoarding. The applause started slowly, then built until it shook the walls. But Emily was not finished. I have one more announcement, something I've been planning for months. The room went quiet. Starting today, every woman who has been helped by this foundation can become a helper herself. We're launching a program called Lift Each Other. For every woman who reaches stability, we'll train her to mentor others, to share what she's learned, to prove that the best way to honor a gift is to pass it on. Maria stood up in the front row. I'm in. Another woman stood. Me too. Then another, and another, until half the room was on their feet, volunteering to become part of something larger than themselves. Emily watched it happen, tears streaming down her face. This was Eleanor's legacy, not the gold, not the investments, not the properties or artwork or carefully documented secrets. This room full of women standing together, refusing to let anyone struggle alone. That night, Emily returned to the cabin one last time. Lily was with George at the base of the mountain. Baby Eleanor was with a trusted babysitter. Emily made the drive alone, watching the familiar landmarks pass in the darkness. The split oak, the lightning-scarred pine, the gate hidden behind the boulder. The cabin looked different now, properly maintained. Warm lights in the windows, no longer abandoned but waiting. Emily walked past the building to the rise where Eleanor and Rosie were buried. The markers glowed faintly in the moonlight. She sat down in the cold grass and pulled out a photograph she had found in the vault 2 years ago. Eleanor and Rosie laughing together before grief changed everything. I brought someone to meet you, Emily whispered. She held up her phone. A video played on the screen. Baby Eleanor, 2 years old, taking her first steps without holding on to anything, stumbling, falling, getting back up again, just like Rosie had once done, just like Emily had done, just like every woman the foundation had ever helped. She's fearless, Emily said, just like the little girl you lost, just like you before the world convinced you to be afraid. The wind moved through the trees, making a sound almost like breathing. I finished what you started. The foundation is helping thousands of people. The money is creating opportunity instead of hiding in darkness. Your legacy isn't isolation anymore. It's connection. Emily wiped her eyes. I named her after both of you because I wanted her to know that she comes from strong women, women who survived impossible things, women who built empires from grief, women who refused to give up. She placed her hand on Eleanor's marker. Thank you for choosing me. Thank you for believing I could do what you couldn't. Thank you for giving me the chance to become someone I never thought I could be. The stars were brilliant overhead, millions of them, each one a promise. I'll take care of everything. The foundation, the family, the legacy. I'll make sure your story doesn't end in loneliness, it ends in love. Emily stood slowly, brushing grass from her clothes. Rest now, both of you. You've earned it. She walked back to her car, but at the last moment she turned to look at the markers one more time, and in the moonlight she could almost see them. 2 figures standing together, a mother and daughter reunited at last. Eleanor raised her hand in what might have been a wave, or a blessing, or a goodbye. Emily waved back. Then she got in her car and drove down the mountain toward her daughters, toward her foundation, toward the life Eleanor had made possible. 3 years later, the Eleanor Whitmore Foundation operated in 37 cities across 4 countries. Emily had stepped back from daily operations just as she had planned. Regional directors ran each location. Thousands of volunteers, many of them former recipients, helped other women climb toward stability. The model had been replicated around the world. Similar foundations had sprung up in Europe, Asia, South America, all of them tracing their inspiration back to a single source. A pregnant waitress who had inherited a cabin everyone called worthless. and found $160 million hidden in its walls. Emily still lived in Denver, still visited the cabin every few months, still talked to Eleanor and Rosie under the stars. Lily was 16 now, applying to colleges, planning to study social work so she could help the foundation professionally. Baby Eleanor, now 5, had started kindergarten and already displayed her mother's determination and her great-great-aunt's fierce independence. On the 5th anniversary of the foundation's launch, Emily received a letter. It was from Jennifer Whitmore, Richard's daughter. Dear Emily, I'm writing to tell you that I graduated from nursing school today, top of my class. I start at the hospital next week. My son Daniel is 3 years old now. He's smart and curious and kind. He doesn't know yet what his grandfather did or how you helped us when we had nowhere else to turn. But someday I'll tell him. I'll tell him that when we were at our lowest, a woman who had every reason to turn us away chose compassion instead. You changed our lives, Emily, not just by giving us money, but by showing us that grace is possible, that people can rise above their circumstances, that the sins of our parents don't have to define us. I've started volunteering at a women's shelter in my spare time, helping new mothers who remind me of myself 3 years ago, passing on what you passed to me. Thank you for everything, for seeing me as something other than Richard Whitmore's daughter, for proving that the cycle of hurt can be broken. With love and gratitude, Jennifer Emily read the letter 3 times. Then she framed it and hung it on her office wall next to the photograph of Eleanor and Rosie, proof that transformation was possible, that love was stronger than hate, that the legacy of one grieving mother could ripple outward across generations, touching lives that Eleanor never knew, healing wounds that Eleanor never imagined. That evening, Hauptmann Emily gathered her family for dinner. Lily helped set the table. Baby Eleanor insisted on using the fancy plates. George arrived with a bottle of wine he had been saving for a special occasion. What are we celebrating? Lily asked. Emily thought about it, about the letter from Jennifer, about the foundation's 5th anniversary, about everything that had changed since she first walked into that cabin 5 years ago. We're celebrating what we have, she said finally. Each other, this family, this life. That's not a real answer, Lily protested. It's the only answer that matters. They ate together, laughing and talking and arguing about nothing important. The kind of ordinary evening that Emily had dreamed about during all those years of working double shifts and crying alone in empty apartments. After dinner, when the dishes were done and baby Eleanor was in bed, Emily stepped onto the back porch. The stars were out. Millions of them, just like at the cabin. Lily joined her after a few minutes. Mom, can I ask you something? Always. Do you ever think about what would have happened if Aunt Eleanor had chosen someone else? Emily considered the question. Sometimes. I think about the person I was before the inheritance. Exhausted, scared, certain that my life would never get better. Do you miss her? That person? No. Emily's voice was firm. She was surviving, but she wasn't living. There's a difference. Lily was quiet for a moment. I want to be like you when I grow up. Not famous or rich, just someone who helps people, who makes things better instead of worse. Emily pulled her daughter close. You already are, baby. You've been making things better since the day you were born. Shh. They stood together under the stars, mother and daughter survivors and dreamers. And somewhere in the mountains, under a simple stone marker, Eleanor Whitmore finally rested in peace. Her fortune transformed. Her isolation ended. Her legacy living on in every life the foundation touched. She had spent 42 years hiding from the world, convinced that love only led to loss. But in the end, she had been wrong. Love multiplied. It grew. It passed from hand to hand like a flame that never went out. And in choosing Emily and trusting a struggling single mother with everything she had, Eleanor had finally found what she had been searching for since the day Rosie died. Not isolation, not safety, not even peace. Connection. The knowledge that her life had mattered, that her grief had become purpose, that her ending was actually a beginning. Emily looked up at the stars one last time. Thank you, she whispered to whoever might be listening, for choosing me, for believing in me, for showing me that even the worst circumstances can become the foundation for something beautiful. The wind carried her words up toward the mountains, toward the cabin, toward the graves, toward whatever came next. Emily Carter had inherited $160 million, but the true fortune was never about money. It was about discovering that she was worthy of love, that she was capable of changing the world. That strength was not about never falling, but about getting back up every single time, and that the greatest treasures in life are not found in hidden vaults or secret rooms. They are found in the connections we make, the lives we touch, and the legacy we leave behind. Eleanor Whitmore had taught her that, and Emily Carter would spend the rest of her life proving it true.